In episode 7, Desire calls up Despair and says, "I've got news." And Despair immediately thinks it's the prodigal has returned, but Desire says, "Oh, no, this isn't about him. It's about dreams. I've got a new plan." But as Despair points out, your plans haven't really worked yet. But Desire is convinced that this plan will work, because there is something called a dream vortex, and it's the first one in a long time. The vortex's name is Rose Walker, and she has no idea that she actually is a vortex. But as Desire says, she's already doing what a vortex is supposed to do, bringing everything and everyone to her, including Morpheus. And rumors of a vortex have reached the dream realm. Everyone's kind of talking about it. Lucienne is trying to conduct a census, but every person she talks to brings up the vortex, and Lucienne plays it off like it's nothing more than a rumor. When she's done conducting the census, she goes to Morpheus and gives him the update, and most of it's to be expected, but there are 3 big pieces that are missing. The first is Galt. Galt is a nightmarish shape changer. The second missing entity is the Corinthian. And the third is something called Fiddler's Green, which is really peculiar to both Lucienne and Morpheus. The first 2 aren't shocking, this one is, because Fiddler's Green has always been really reliable. Lucienne brings up the rumor that as everybody talking, and Morpheus tells her that's not a rumor, that's true. Lucienne urges Morpheus to go after it, but he says, "I can't. We can't go after any mortal who isn't a threat. And maybe she can help us out. She's a vortex, so sooner or later she's going to draw one of those 3 to her." Lucienne thinks that's really risky because Rose could destroy the waking and the dreaming, but Morpheus tells her, "I'm watching her." The problem is he's only watching her in her sleep. So Lucienne proposes that they have someone go and watch her when she's awake, and Matthew volunteers. Lucienne fills Matthew in on what to look for. She tells him that if the vortex manifests, she's going to do so in her dreams. But that's going to reflect her waking life. So he just has to look out for any signs of shock or trauma. That's pretty vague, but Matthew has his orders and he flies off. Meanwhile, Rose Walker is already going through trauma. Her mother just died and she's been trying to track down her little brother Jed, who she was separated from when her parents got divorced. Jed stayed in Florida, she moved up to New Jersey, but she eventually found out that Jed was placed in foster care. And since then, she's had no luck. It's also proved to be really expensive and she doesn't have a job. So she is beyond stressed out. She does have some support though. Her 2 friends, Lyda and Carl, are there for emotional support. But she does get a break. There's a foundation in England that's willing to pay her $250 a day for 7 days to fly her out and do a family history interview. That's it. It's easy money. So Carl house sits for her while Lyda and Rose head on off to England. It's worth mentioning, by the way, that Rose is actually friends with Judy, the same Judy who died in the diner, but we don't actually know if Rose is aware of that. While flying over, the 2 women get some sleep, and Lyda's dead husband visits her in her dreams. She's been trying to put on a good face since her husband died, but it's been really, really tough for her. The next day, they arrive in Sussex, and they go to the foundation. They're greeted by the lawyer, Mr. Holdaway, and then he escorts them in the building and over to his client. When they enter the room, there's an old woman, and her name is Unity Kincaid. She explains to both Rose and Lyda that when she was younger, she fell ill with something called encephalitis lethargica. Basically, it's what the people that didn't die from the lack of dreams had. They just fell asleep. Unity stayed asleep until about 8 months ago. But in her dreams, she had this glorious life. She took over her father's business, she met a man with golden eyes, and they had a baby together. But then she woke up, and she found out that none of it was real, except for the baby. Because when she was asleep in the hospital, she had a baby girl, and that baby was Rose's mother. Rose gives Unity a giant hug, and the 2 start getting caught up. After a little while, though, Rose decides to go looking for Lyda, but she hears somebody calling her name. And when she opens a door, there are the Fates. They tell her, "You're at a crossroads, and we can only caution you. We can't protect you. Beware of dreams and houses, and we must warn you against the Corinthian." Suddenly, though, the light turns on, and all of it's gone. Lyda's standing there, and it was as if Rose was daydreaming. Rose goes and talks to Unity, and Unity is adamant that she wants to find Jed. Problem is, Rose explains that she doesn't have any money, and for Unity, that's not an issue, because the family comes from a lot of money. They own a sugar company. So on Unity's dime, Rose and Lyda are going to head down to Cape Kennedy, Florida, and try to locate Jed. But before she leaves, Unity takes off a ring and hands it to Rose and says, "My parents gave this to me a long time ago. It's yours now." It's a gold amulet, which is really surprising to Rose because she had a dream about an amulet. And who the hell dreams about an amulet? Both Rose and Lyda head off to Cape Kennedy, Florida, and they're going to stay at a B&B. The owner is a guy named Hal, and he told Rose his entire life story, so Rose, in turn, told him his on the phone when she made the reservation. But he also is a gossip, so he told the entire B&B about the new guests. That includes two of their neighbors, Ken and Barbie, who are aware that that name is cringeworthy. But they seem really nice, and they invite both Rose and Lyda out that night. The whole B&B is going. Rose and Lyda then meet their other neighbors, Chantel and Zelda, who are a little peculiar. Hal tells Rose that he doesn't know if they're girlfriends, wives, mother-daughter, but he actually likes the mystery. And then the final resident is a guy named Gilbert, but they don't meet him. They put their stuff down and they head over to social services. But social services will not give the location of Jed. Their stance is pretty simple. Jed has parents, legally, and Rose isn't it. Even though she's his sister, she's not bound by law to know exactly where he's located. Rose pleads with the woman, explaining that Jed is the only family that she has left, and all she wants to do is see him and talk to him. But the social services woman says, "What happens if I tell you where your brother is, and you find out that he doesn't want to go with you, that he's comfortable where he is? What then? Or what about if he tells you that he wants to live with you? Are you ready for that burden at the age of 21? Are you really prepared to raise a 12-year-old boy by yourself?" It's not like the social services woman is completely cold, though. She does tell Rose that the foster parents were friends of her dad's. They took Jed in, they applied to be his foster parents, and now they're getting $800 a month, so Jed is doing fine. It's not really the news Rose wanted, but for the moment, she just has to accept it. Her and Lyda head back to the B&B, and Ken, Barbie, Zelda, and Chantel are about to actually leave for the cabaret, and it's the cabaret that Hal performs in. Even though they're a little jet-lagged, Rose and Lyda could just use a little bit of a break, so they head there. And they're having a great time. Hal's really good. But during the performance, Rose gets a phone call from Unity, so she steps out in an alley to take it. She can't hear Unity, so she's trying to move around, and that's when she's approached by two guys who are looking to mug her. Luckily, though, Rose is saved by a Good Samaritan who takes both guys out. And it turns out the Good Samaritan is actually Gilbert, who is heading to the performance late to go see Hal. But Gilbert decides to walk Rose home instead of going into the cabaret. And everything that Rose has done since she's entered Cape Kennedy has been seen by Matthew. And after the mugging, he heads back to the dream realm and he alerts Lucienne on what he saw. Lucienne, though, is wondering what the hell she's doing in Florida, and Matthew explains, well, she's looking for her missing brother. And that's news to Lucienne. She had no idea that Jed Walker was missing. But sure enough, she can't find him in her records either. And the big deal is the fact that he's not just missing from the waking world, he's also missing from the dreaming world as well. Lucienne goes to alert Morpheus about it, but Morpheus is dealing with the same problem. He can't locate Jed Walker either. And that is really peculiar because all humans are connected to the world of dreaming. In fact, they spend a third of their life there. And breaking that connection would require the power and the knowledge to do so. Lucienne tells Morpheus that the last nightmare that Jed Walker had before he completely disappeared was of Galt. And there's a chance that Galt severed him from the dreaming world. And Galt probably did it because Jed isn't just any child, he's Rose Walker's brother. But at that moment, somebody else enters the room, and it's Rose Walker. Somehow, she ended up in the dream world on her own, and she's got some questions about where her brother is. And we're not sure if it's a dream or reality, but we do get a look at maybe what happened to Jed. He was in the road, and he flagged down the car of a woman he called Aunt Clarice. She's concerned about why Jed is in the middle of the road, and he tells her that Uncle Barnaby said he was going to lock him in the cellar, so he decided to run. He starts begging Clarice to get in the car and just take off, go anywhere. But then they're caught by Barnaby. Both Jed and Clarice are terrified of this guy, and Barnaby makes Jed come back to the house with him. But he doesn't put him in the passenger seat, he makes him get in the trunk. While Rose was looking for Jed, Corinthian was looking for Rose. He stopped by her apartment, but all he found was Carl. And Carl liked him some Corinthian, so the two slept together. But as Corinthian is getting ready to leave, he sees a story on the internet, and it's a copycat murder. Corinthian's pretty well known. In the true crime world, he is a big celebrity. But now, he's got somebody taking credit for his kills? That doesn't sit well with him. And the copycat murders are being done by 3 true crime enthusiasts who want to get the Corinthian's attention because they want him to be the keynote speaker at their murder event. So as they're sitting at a diner table talking about their recent kills, the Corinthian walks up to him, and they are starstruck. They explain to him that they want him to be the keynote guest at their, quote, annual gathering of collectors, people who share the hobby of murder. He actually chuckles at them when they call him the current Corinthian, because they think that there have been multiple ones. They don't realize that this is the only Corinthian because he looks so young. Corinthian loves the idea, but he asks to bring a guest, and the guest is Rose Walker. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.